By the end of this tutorial, you're going to understand everything that you need to know about how to build apps using Bolt. If you haven't heard of Bolt before, it's an AI tool that allows you to prompt what you want to build, and then it will use AI to generate the code for you, and then you can test and work on your app all in the browser. So everything is going to be done in the browser. You don't have to use any other code editor or anything like that. So in this video, I'm going to build a recipe app. This is going to be a similar type of app that I built in a previous video where we created a full guide to Lovable. Lovable is a similar tool to Bolt. So if you want to check out that video, go to our channel and check that video out. But in this video, we're going to be doing it with Bolt. Now, one more thing before we get started, I want to talk about a couple settings that I have here. So if I go to the bottom left, we go to settings here. I want to show you a couple things. First, I'm on a paid plan of Bolt, $20 a month. I recommend doing that as well if you want to build anything beyond just a really simple demo, because you're going to run out of tokens. So it's worth even just testing it out for 1 month for $20. This also gives you access to feature previews. Diffs is one of the previews I'm going to have turned on for this video. It allows Bolt to use a diff-based approach to editing. So rather than rewriting the entire file for each change, it's just going to make smaller changes. This saves a lot on tokens. Now, it's not perfect. Sometimes this can lead to issues, in which case you might want to turn this off and then retry your prompt if you're running into the same issue over and over again. But overall, I find this to be a really helpful feature, so I have that turned on. Next, I already have my Supabase account connected. If you have a Supabase account, or if you don't have one, it's very easy to create one. And then it's just a one-button integration to connect it. This is something we're going to use later on in the tutorial when we actually connect a backend database to our app. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to write the first prompt, and I'm going to pause the video. And once I'm done, I'll explain what I wrote. So I wrote a simple prompt here of I want to generate a recipe tracking app. I want to be able to add recipes and view recipes. There should be a recipe page with all the recipes and an individual recipes pages to view the individual recipe. I want it to be modern and sleek design. So before we actually hit generate, and we could do that, I'm going to use the enhance prompt feature that Bolt has. So I'm going to click this, and what it's going to do is take our prompt and basically just enhance it. And as you can see, it's getting a lot longer. And it's just going to give the AI a little bit more to work with. So what I recommend, especially for the first one, is enhance your prompt, then read through it and see if there's anything you want to change. You always can change before you actually start to generate. So I see it added, for example, search and filter functionality. I like that idea. It added some more kind of details about the design, which I like. For the recipe card, it added more information of what we want on that, which I like as well, for a title, cooking time, difficulty level, etc. I like how it just kind of had more information here about the individual recipe page elements. I like all of this. Option to print or share recipe. I like that idea as well that it came up with. And the recipe creation form fields. I like all of these things. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do the first generation. So what Bolt does is it kind of enters into this little chat, and it's going to get started. And as you can see, it's already writing the code. It's doing some of these first installations to just kind of set up our environment so that we can actually write all the rest of the code and view it. I'm going to pause the video while it does all of this, and I'll come back to you once we can test the first version. So it's saying that it started implementing, and it's kind of listed out some of the features. And it's asking if I want to continue with any specific part of the implementation. So before I do that, let's see what it actually built. And it looks like it also kind of created some dummy data so that we can see what it might look like. And I like how it did this. Lovable does this as well. And here's kind of the first attempt here. We have a search bar. I'm not sure if the functionality is there yet. If I click add recipe, that's not there. So all they've built out is just this first homepage. But I like how it's going so far. So why don't I say, let's continue implementing all the features. And I'm going to pause the video and come back to you once it is finished. So it has finished with implementing the features. I think what's really impressive is that it broke these down into individual steps, and it's telling us that it already, in one prompt, finished the core features. So a responsive recipe with a grid layout, we can see it added a second recipe here to test the functionality, improved the design. It says it added previews with hover effects. I like that as well. Real-time search. I can see if I search chicken, then that is already happening. And if I search pizza, that only shows the pizza, which I think is great. It added local storage for data persistence. So we're going to add in backend storage through Supabase. But local storage means that basically as long as I'm on this browser, it will work. And let's go ahead and click into a recipe. And okay, so it looks like now we are getting an issue. We're seeing the issue in the error. And when this happens, especially if there's already a button to attempt the fix, the best thing to do is the first thing is try to attempt the fix. If it doesn't work, we can always experiment with different prompts to try to fix it. But let's see if it's able to fix it just with that. All right, so let's try. I'm going to click in, and it looks like now it is working. There is still a little bit of a design issue on the recipe card page where that's dark, so I can't read the button. Let's go down. I'm not sure what those buttons are doing. Oh, okay, so that's the print button. This button, I'm not sure. We're getting an error. So we could attempt that fix. Edit recipe. So it looks like I have the ability here to edit the recipe, which is cool. It looks like just some of these buttons here are not visible. Or like the text seems to be hidden. But overall, this looks really good. So I'm going to say a couple things. On the recipe, on the individual recipe page, some of the buttons, the button text is not readable, such as the back to recipes button, the print button, and more. Also on the edit recipe page, the same issue. Make sure all the buttons are readable. And then also, I'm going to say, actually, let's just do that first, and let's see how it goes. One thing you can also see is we started with 10 million daily tokens remaining, and now we're at 9.8 million. So we're starting to use up some tokens, but we still have plenty more to work with. So let's pause the video, and I'll come back once it has resolved this. All right, so we're back, and it seems to have fixed this one back to recipes, which is awesome. Let's go into edit recipe, and these square buttons are still not resolved. So I'm going to say the square buttons on the recipe page and edit recipe page are still not visible of what they should be. So let's see if this solves it. So it's a lot about kind of prompting it, seeing what's happening, and fixing the visibility. So it says, I'll fix the visibility of the square icon by adding cool tips and improving their appearance. So it seems like it understands what I'm asking for. And you can see because we're using the diffs functionality, this happened a lot more quickly than if we didn't, and you would have to rewrite everything just for that. So again, it's not really working. Let's go to edit and see if anything's there. So I'm going to take a picture. Sometimes this is a really helpful thing to do. So I'm going to show this and say, see how the square buttons have nothing inside. And this is a good way to debug, is actually showing it exactly what you mean. So it says, I see what they're missing, see the issue, they're missing their icons. So now it's going to just make sure the icons are properly rendered. So we'll click in. It's still not working. And if I click edit, same thing. So I'm going to say the icons are still not rendering. Can you try a different method? So this is helpful. Another helpful prompt tip to keep in mind is if it's not working, have it kind of try a different approach. If you don't ask it for that, it might just keep trying to do the same thing over and over again. So it's going to change it to something. Nope, still not working. So let me go back. I'm going to say we're getting the same issue. Is it possible the icons are not loading correctly in the app? maybe we need to use different icons. So let's see what it says to this. So it can also be helpful to um, kind of come up with a different way around it. So it says it's going to now try to use SVG icons directly instead of relying on the Lucide React components. So there's something obviously wrong with loading in those components that it's trying to do. So I think it might be creating its own SVG icons now. So the only issue I can see here is sometimes when it does things like that, it might not be a very good icon, but let's see how it goes. Worst case scenario, we could always put it in, give it an SVG to put in. Let's just see what it does, and we can always come back to this later as well. All right, so I'm going to go ahead, click in. Okay, so it's still not working, but if I click on that one, I'm getting an error. This one, I'm not. This must be the delete button. So I know what it's doing. I'm going to come back to that later because I don't want to spend too much time just like debugging one issue. I'm going to try this one. I don't know what this is supposed to do, so I'm going to attempt to fix. I know this is the print button. This I'm not sure. Oh, this is the share recipe button. Okay. Cool. So this would be great if the icons were working correctly. Okay. Now at least it says share recipe, even though nothing's happening. I know what's happening. If I hover, print recipe. If I hover, nothing here, but I know that's the delete. Okay, cool. But overall, I think it's cool. And then here, under select cuisines, for some reason, Italian, Indian. Yep, so that's working correctly. That's awesome. And then difficulty, easy, medium, hard. Awesome. So that is all showing up. I'd love to add another filter of, can you add another filter on the home page based on time to cook? So I think that could be kind of cool. Let's say you want to do it something under 30 minutes, under an hour. Let's see how that goes. Adding cooking time filter. Now we have a cooking time filter here. So if I click on this, I can change this up to here. And it looks like once it's over 45, it'll only show 45 or higher and then under. Okay, interesting. So this is almost there, but I want it so, can you make the range more customizable for time so I can do any range I want? Also, the button text on the range filter is not readable. Okay, so let's see if it's able to just fix that real quick. So I'm getting into a little bit of kind of details of editing and fixing, but let's see how this works. By the way, before we look into the preview of how it did it, and it looks like this isn't an issue in this specific instance because it is targeting the correct file. But if you do this and it's not working correctly, one thing you can do is, we know we're working on recipe filters. What you can do is right click in the code, so not the preview, and click target file. So by doing this, we're only going to change this file. It will not change any other file. You need to make sure you untarget that before we go into other things. Also, you can right click on a file and you can lock it. So by locking it, that prevents the AI from making changes to that file. So I'm going to unlock that file. Now, these are kind of more advanced techniques. If you know which files you want to lock or which files you want to target, the AI does a pretty good job of making sure to target the right ones. But as your app gets bigger and bigger, that's something that will become more useful. So let's go to cooking time. Okay, so I can do min 20, max 45, apply. Okay, cool. This is pretty good. We could always kind of do more tweaking with that, but I like how it added that cooking time filter. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is add a backend database so we can actually save these recipes to our actual database. So what I'm going to do is on the right, top right, click connect to Supabase. As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I already had Supabase connected to my account. So we're going to do that. It's going to create a project for us within Supabase. So now Bolt has created a new project here in Supabase. So I can click View Project and we can see it has created it. So I'm going to go down and say, I'd like to add a backend database through my connected Supabase project so that data can be saved and be persistent across sessions. Okay, great. And let's see what happens here. So now it's creating the database schema to update the application to use Supabase instead of local storage. So then it's going to want us to review the changes. So what the tables that we're adding before we actually do it. I think it looks good. If for some reason it turns out there's an issue later, you can always make changes to these. So don't worry too much, especially when you're just testing things out. So it said the migration was applied. So that was applied to Supabase. So it's just all done. You don't have to worry about going into Supabase right now. But there's a potential problem detected. Error must be authenticated to load recipes. So let's attempt fix. I want to see what's going to happen here. They need to add authentication UI. Okay, that's exactly what I was hoping it was going to do. I was going to ask it to add the authentication, but it already kind of knew that. So now it's going to add authentication, which essentially means signing in and logging into the app. So sometimes you get this error. What I'm going to do is just copy everything here, go down and say, I'm getting an error on page load, and then copy it. And then that usually solves it. All right, so here we are. We have a sign up page. I'm just going to say, can you center the sign in, sign up element on the page? It's still not centered. I'm just going to give it a screenshot. Again, this helps a lot of the time. Here's a screenshot so you can see what I mean. Okay. Okay, so after a little bit of back and forth, this looks a lot better. Let's click sign up. I don't know if it has this built in yet, the functionality, but let's see. So I'm going to say create account. And okay, cool. It looks like it did it. And let me just check the project here. So if I go to the project, if we go to, on the left side, we go to database. So we can see kind of how it's set up the database structure. If we go to authentication, you can see, okay, created. It did create the account. So that's great. Something else that I think is pretty cool that Bolt did when it created this project by default so you go to authentication, you go to providers, you open up email. The confirm email is turned off by default, so you don't have to confirm your email in the app, which also would mean that we'd have to connect an email provider and just make it a little more complicated. But I like that they just by default did not, they set it up correctly, so you don't have to worry about that. Something actually, Lovable used to be a little bit ahead of Bolt on this, and now Bolt might be a little ahead of Lovable on this because you have to go in with Lovable. These are not that hard things to do, but they're just things to know, and if you don't know them, it can be a little bit tricky. Okay, so I am now logged in, and if I click on a recipe, actually, let me go back to the project one time. I'm curious, table editor, recipe ingredients, instructions. So we don't have anything right now, so it's only showing me that dummy data. So I'm going to say, please remove the dummy data from the recipes and only show recipes data from the database. So it should just empty this out once we do that, and then we can add a recipe. So this is what we expect. It removed the sample recipes. Let's add a recipe. So we'll say pizza, pizza description, cuisine, Italian. We can leave these by default. Ingredient, dough. Let's say £1. I can add ingredients and delete them. Again, remember the icon isn't showing up here, but that's okay. We know what it does. And I don't want to go into too much detail here, just to make this go quickly. 1 can of sauce. Instructions: put sauce on dough, put in oven at 400 Fahrenheit. Okay, fine. And you can add more steps. Can add 2 steps: put sauce on dough, put in oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit. And then you can also add nutritional information: 500 calories, 20, 20, 20. Interesting. We had a little error when we were entering that in. I'm not going to worry about that right now. And for tags, again, I think we can leave it empty. It could say Italian and add if I want, or remove those tags. I'm not going to add a tag for now. And then for image URL, I'm just going to go to Unsplash right now, image, and get an image. Now, we could add the ability to upload images and save them to Supabase, but for right now, let's just copy this image URL, put it here. This is from Unsplash, so it's a free image, and I'll click Save Recipe. And looks like we're getting an error, so that's fun. Maybe this error does need to be solved first, so let's attempt this fix, and then we'll go through this again. I'll pause the video so you don't have to watch me go through all of that again. Okay. All right, let's see. I'm going to add the recipe. Again, I'll pause the video. I'll let you know once it's finished. All right, moment of truth. We'll click Save Recipe. And it looks like Save Recipe. Okay, so when I click Save Recipe, nothing is happening. So maybe it has to build in that functionality. So let's see. Okay, yep, we're not properly handling it. So let's see if this fixes it. Let's try one more time. Oh, okay, I like that. It put us and made sure we did that. Let's hit Save Recipe. We're still running into an error. So when I click Save Recipe, actually, before we do that, I wonder if it's saving it. No. Recipe, nothing seems to happen. Okay, I'm going to pause the video again. Okay, so finally we got to the root of the problem. I said not only is there no notification, because it kept thinking it was just about the UI, but the recipe does not save to the database. So then it noticed that we didn't add the schema for that. So I'm going to click Apply Changes. It was not applied correctly. So let's try to attempt the fix. So switched it to dark mode for some reason. All right, I'm going to try to apply these changes. Okay. So let's see if it now works. I'm going to do it one more time. Moment of truth, click Save Recipe. And nothing. Maybe I need a tag. Nope, still nothing. I'll go back to recipes, nothing there. Not seem to upload the recipe to the database when I hit save. I get no error message either. All right, it says it noticed a few issues that need to be addressed, so let's see if it's able to actually address them. So I'm going to see if this makes any difference. All right, we're going to add some database functions for saving. And I'm going to say, so it should work now, correct? And let's see what it says here. Before I actually test it, I'm just curious what will happen. Okay, it says it should work. All right, I'm going to add recipe one more time. All right, one more try to debug this. I'm showing an image of exactly what I'm doing, so it knows. But the issue isn't exactly that it needs to add better error handling user feedback. It needs to actually upload the save the recipe to the database, which it's not doing. But let's see if this makes any difference here. Okay, so we continue to run into the same issue. What I'm going to do is on the bottom, go to settings. Under feature previews, I'm going to turn diffs off and save and reload. The reason I'm doing this is, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, if you keep running into the same issue, sometimes it's helpful to turn that off, and it's going to use more tokens to try and rewrite things, but sometimes it's just necessary. So we're using a lot of tokens just trying to debug over and over again anyway. So I'm going to say when I click save recipe, nothing happens. No. And the recipes are not being saved to the database. I checked Supabase as well. So it's both a database issue and a UI issue. Please review all relevant code and resolve this for me. Okay, so it's going to take a little bit longer because it is going to rewrite more code here. But it's going to diagnose and fix both issues. Let's pause the video and I'm going to come back and hopefully it is resolved now. So it's finally fixed after a lot of back and forth with Bolt switching from the diffs feature preview to the original feature preview so it'll rewrite everything. I was able to kind of share the error message that I was getting and it worked. So if I click add recipe, I could do it again because I also asked it to pre-fill all of this. So if I'm testing it, I don't have to every single time write that in manually. So I click save recipe. There we go. Recipe saved. It brought me to the recipe. And now they're just both showing up because I did it twice. But it is working now, which is amazing. So the last thing I want to show you in this video is how to actually deploy your app. So they have a big blue deploy button here. They make it really easy. I can click deploy. So by doing that, it just builds the application and it's going to deploy it to Netlify. Now it's going to deploy it to an instance of Bolt's Netlify. So it's basically not our own Netlify account. They do have a link to make it easy to add it to your own Netlify account, which will then allow you to also add your own custom domain. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And there we go. Now we are live on a separate website, fully separate website. I could send this link to anyone and they could log in and have their own recipe tracking app. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. Be sure to subscribe to our channel to get even more free content like this in the future. Check out all of our past videos where we cover building in Bolt and Lovable, other AI tools, other no-code tools. There's a lot of content for free to check out. If you want to take everything you're learning to the next level, check the link in the description. Go to No Code MBA, where we have dozens of hours of in-depth tutorials covering how to build detailed and complex projects from start to finish with easy to follow video tutorials. We cover tools like Bubble, Webflow, Zapier, Airtable, a lot of other AI and no-code tools. So I definitely recommend checking it out and seeing if you might like it. We have a 60-day money-back guarantee, so you can always try out the platform. And if it's not working for you, just send us an email and we'll refund you and cancel the account. So there's no risk to try it out. Thanks again for watching. Leave a comment below if you have any questions. Again, be sure to subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you in the next video.